welcome back to the Clay Academy. Today we are going to be making a new project, a little ceramic box. This is my little cat box that I made a couple of years ago. And you can see that it has a tail that wraps around the body. It has a lid, one of my treasure boxes again. I've signed it on the inside with glaze instead of using my pencil to write my name on it. So there are different ways that you can sign your work. It has little feet, has a tongue, and a couple of little eyes and ears. Very cute. To make a box, first you need to get some clay. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to tilt my camera down so you can see what we're doing today. All right, I have my board ready to go. I have my rolling pin. I've got my two other boards because I need to make sure it's the correct thickness. Remember, if your clay is too thick, it doesn't dry well. And if it's too thin, it can break more easily. So I'm going to use my cutting wire and I'm going to cut off some clay. Now this clay that I just cut off is kind of lumpy and bumpy. So I'm going to choose another slab. I'm going to set this to the side and I'm going to slice it again. And here we go. Much better. So if that happens to you, get a nice good slab of clay, put it on your board, and I can use that extra clay that was lumpy and bumpy because I dug into it. I can use that for something else. So I'm going to put my boards to the side of my slab of clay. Remember, when you roll with your rolling pin, it's important to stand up to roll. It gives you much more strength, so I'm going to do that. And I'm going to press down and roll. I'm not holding onto the handles of the rolling pin. I'm just rolling like that. And then I'm going to take my clay, pick it up, turn it over. And so I'm rolling it a little bit differently now to the side, and I'm going to roll again. Remember, you want to keep your rolling pin touching those boards. That's what keeps the thickness the right thickness. Roll it again, turn it again, and I'm going to roll again. There we go. Now, I have to decide how big I want this little box to be. Your box is going to be built on the bottom up. So you need to decide what the bottom piece, how big is that going to be? So I'm going to draw right in the middle of this slab of clay. I'm going to draw the bottom first. And I'm going to draw with the dull end of my toothpick, or I could use my pencil. Remember, my dull pencil would work too. But I'm going to draw lightly on the clay. I'm not pressing very hard. What I think would be a good size for the bottom of my little clay box. And you can see I drew very lightly on my slab. And once I've drawn that and I like it, then I can cut it out. If I don't like it, if it came out goofy in some way, maybe my lines weren't straight, remember, you can always use these boards as kind of like a ruler to draw your lines so they come out more straight. Now, if I didn't like it, I can erase it and draw it over again because I didn't press very hard on my pencil or my toothpick. It's just very light. Now, because I think that's a good size, I'm looking at my clay because it's in the middle. This gives me the option to maybe do a couple sides here. So I'm going to use my board this time, and I'm going to lightly draw, once again with the dull end of that toothpick, extending my sides out, extending my sides out. So I've drawn 2 more lines here, and you can see these will make a good side. And then I've got room right here for at least 1 more side. So I'm going to use my board again as a ruler, and I'm going to extend that line out here and extend that line out here. Now, on this other side, it's not quite tall enough. It's cut off here, so I might be able to squeeze it out, make it a short little box. It depends on you. Now, if you want your box to be taller, right now, my sides are shorter than this one. So if you want it taller, you're going to have to get a bigger slab of clay and roll it out. But I like small boxes, so I think I will extend this out right here. So I'm going to draw my line again, draw my line again. And so the only thing I'm missing now, because we know that a box has 4 sides and a top and bottom. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 1 more. So I've got room right up in this corner, I think, for the top. So I'm going to take and just lightly draw up here. This is going to be my extra piece that I'm going to use for the top. So now that I've got that all laid out, I can use the sharp end of my toothpick if I want to cut, or I can use my pin tool. And I've got some dried clay on there I need to get rid of, so I'm going to draw right down that line, move my board over, draw right down that line, draw right down this line, and right down this line. Now I'm going to cut that lid right there, and I have to decide how tall this is going to be. So I'm going to cut down here, and I think right here on that side looks good. This looks about the same size here. And this one is a little shorter. I'm going to trim that off. All right, now I can pull all those extra pieces out of there that I don't want. And I can use those pieces to make ears or nose or cheeks or whatever. And then here's the lid. So now I've got the bottom and 4 sides and the top. Now I'm going to start putting it together. So I've got my cup with my slip in it and my scoring tool, and we're ready to begin. I'm going to wet it and score right along the edge of the bottom, because that's where my walls are going to go. And I'm going to just start by putting in the first wall. And I'm just going to place it right there. Press it down. And there's my first wall. Now, when I put on my second wall, you can see that it's going to be, I'm going to have to trim some off there. That's okay. Score the sides that are going to touch. Remember, it's real important to score and add that slip or water or your little box will fall apart. So I'm adding extra water. I'm going to press it into place. This is going to be a tiny little box. I like tiny boxes. There are lots of sizes of boxes, but I like small ones. So it's up to you. Now I need to measure. Where's this one going to go? Oh, it's going to overlap too, but not by much. Look at that. See how that worked out? That worked out really cool. So I need to score this side and the bottom. I need to score where it's going to go. And then I'm going to add my water to those score marks, and I'm going to press that into place. Look at that. That worked out really well. Now I've got one more. And this one is not going to fit. I'm going to have to trim this one. See how this one is overlapped right here? Little extra overlap. So I'm going to have to measure. This is going to fit inside there. So I'm going to have to use my toothpick because it's going to go inside. So I'm going to just do a little mark on that so I know where to cut it. I'm going to trim off that edge. Just like that. I'm going to see, is that going to fit? It's going to be a little small, and it's going to make my box more of a trapezoid. Then I cut too much off. Oh, if that happens to you, what can you do? I'm going to get an extra piece from my scrap pile. And let's see. Can I make that work? Yep, I can. Make it a little bit bigger. It's always nice to make mistakes on camera. There, that's better. Now, I'm going to score, 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 score where those sides are going to go. Even professionals, even people who have done this many, many times make mistakes. So don't worry about it. And I'm going to press it in because I wanted it to be more of a square than a trapezoid. I was ending up with a trapezoid. Well, it's still kind of trapezoidal. That's okay. And now I'm going to turn my box and I'm going to start tapping it. I'm going to tap, 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 tap. There we go. And it's a little trapezoid. That's okay. And now I'm going to use my finger and a little bit of water to smooth my edges. I'm turning it, smooth that edge. Turning it, this one I need to push out just a little bit. Smooth that edge. So I've got that smooth. There we go. Now this is an opportunity sometimes when we smooth, it helps to use the rib. And you would stick that in water and just pull up with it. And it will smooth that side instantly. Always put your fingers inside a shape so that you don't collapse it when you do something like this. comes out very nicely then. And if you see that you have sharp edges, you always want to smooth them with your finger, because if it's a sharp edge, it will be sharp when it dries, and glaze does not like to stick to a sharp edge. Plus you can cut yourself, and that's no fun. Now you can see that the top of the lid is not real even. It's a little bit higher back here. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because when I put my lid on, and that was one of the sides, when I put my lid on, I'm going to have to press that in, make sure it fits. And because this is a small box, when I put my lid on, it's not going to matter if it's uneven. So I'm going to score the edge. Because this is a small box, I don't need to stuff it with newspaper. When we make bigger shapes and they can collapse easily, like we did with our piggy bank, we want to stuff that. If this were a bigger box, I would want to stuff it to keep it from collapsing. If I want it to have a rounded top, that's another reason I might want to stuff it. But I'm just going to make it flat today. So I'm not going to stuff it with newspaper this time. I'm just going to push it in. Push it in. As you build things like this, you might start out with an idea that it's going to be this big and it's going to be this way and that way. And as you build, you have to be open to change, because a lot of times things kind of morph into other things, and then you go, oh, I like this much better. Yeah. Okay, so here's my little box. There we go. Now I'm ready to start adding my ears, nose, and tail. So I'm going to get into that scrap pile again. And I'm going to begin with the nose of the cat. A nose is actually a triangle. So I'm going to squeeze my clay again. Take a little piece, press it down. There's my little triangle shape. And it's a little bit too thick, so I'm going to cut some of that off. And then I'm going to put it on. So I'm going to score where is it going to go. It's going to go right there. So I want my water. And noses on cats are upside down triangles. So I'm going to put that in place. And there's my little nose. Now, a nose should have nose holes, right? So I'm going to put in some nose holes. Use my dull pencil. And I'm going to put in a nose hole right here. And along the side right here. So there's my nose holes. Cat's gotta breathe, right? Yeah. So there's my little nose. And a cat's nose also has kind of a little dent in it. So I'm gonna just put a little line right there. And that's my little nose. Now I made some cheeks. Remember on my box I've got some cheeks. Just gonna put those right next to the nose. Take a little piece of clay, break it in two so that I've got equal cheeks. Roll a little ball in the palm of my hand. When you want a ball, you always go in circles. Now I'm going to score it. score where it's going to go. It's going to go on kind of on the top. And that's pretty wet. If it's not, add some water. Remember, the little things like this can fall off when they dry if you don't score it and add your water. That is a very important step. So don't forget it. So there are my two little cheeks. Now I'm going to put in my eyeballs. Remember, if you want something to be really cute, I've got, once again, I took a little piece of clay like this, and I'm going to break it in half, roll it into a little ball. There's an eyeball. Here's an eyeball. And I'm going to put them close together like that. So I'm going to take both of them. These are the things that fall off if you forget to put water or score it. Press them on. Keep them close together, and it looks kind of cartoonish, which makes it cuter for your box. Now I'm going to add my ears. Ears, remember, are like those petals we made on our little pinch pot. So I'm going to put my fingers together and press to make that point and kind of fold it over for the ear. Then I'm going to put the ears back here. Add my water. Score the ear. Lots of goo on that one. And press it into place. There's one ear. Now let's make the second one. Pinch it, flatten it, curl it. Looks about the same. Score it, add that goo, that slip or water, very important. And press it. Okay, so I've got my ears, my cheeks. Now, to add my tongue, I'm going to do another little flat piece. Kind of rounded though, a tongue is more rounded. Flatten that out, and that's going to go underneath my nose. So I need to score it, add some water, and there's my little tongue. Kind of cock it to the side a little bit. There we go. Now the tail, it's my last part. Rock and roll, little piece of clay. Tails should never just stick out like that because they will get broken. So I'm going to attach it to the body of the box. I'm going to score it. I'm going to score where it's going to go. And I'm going to kind of make a scoring trail here along the side. I can always smooth over if I need to. Add my water. Add my tail. There's the beginning of it. And have it come around like that. And curl it a little bit. Tails. Curl. Okay. So there's my little tail. On this one I put some feet. You can do the same. Feet, once again, should be about the same size ball of clay. That looks pretty good. Roll it. A foot I'm going to press down. Kind of press down. kind of squarish, actually, isn't it? Roll it, press it, kind of squarish. And those are going to go right in the front. So I'm going to score where it's going to go. Press one on there. And score this one. Press it on. And now I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this. I'm going to add some holes for the cheeks so the whiskers can stick out. I wouldn't add whiskers to this. I guess you could, but it might be very difficult for you. So I'm just going to make some holes. Once again, I'm using the dull end of that toothpick. I could use the pointy end if I wanted for this. I don't think it really matters. So there's the holes for the cheeks. Now, to make the toes, I'm going to take the sharp end of my toothpick, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm just going to press. See how I did that? Press, kind of press it in. There we go. Those look pretty good for toes, right? And there we have it. Now, I'm not going to cut the lid off until it is leather hard. Remember, we don't do that because we can really mess it up. It needs to be harder. So I'm going to wrap this in plastic, let it sit overnight in the plastic. But before I put it in the plastic, I want to leave it out for about an hour to dry. Then wrap it up in plastic, and then tomorrow I will open it up and I will cut off the lid, which I will show you in just a few minutes because I'm going to let it dry, and then I will add to this video later. Now on this one, I glazed lines on the cat with a puffy kind of glaze, and we'll talk about that kind of glaze when we get into glazing. However, if you want to create some lines on your piece, you can use a tool that has notches, or you can take your toothpick. Here it is. This has notches on it. So I can take that and I can just run it up the side and create texture on the piece that looks kind of like hair. So I can do that. Just go all along that box. I'm not pressing super hard. I'm going back and kind of tapping on that so it doesn't have any real sharp edges to it. And you can see that it makes it look more like hair. So I'm going to run it up. Oops, my little tongue got bent. Remember, when your piece is leather hard, you can fix a lot of mistakes that you might have made. Let's see, I'm going to have the hair come like this on the top. Maybe some on the back of the ears. There we go, and now I've got to do the tail. All right. I like it. And I could also poke a hole for the eyes. And there's my cute little cat box. So I will see you in a few minutes. Bye. Hi, welcome back. I have taken my little cat box, and remember we made it yesterday. I've covered it in plastic, and today I'm going to finish it by cutting off the lid. Remember, whenever you have something that has a lid, you need to let it dry a little bit, maybe an hour or two out in the open, and then cover it in plastic, leave it overnight, and come back to it in the morning when it is leather hard. Then you can work with it without ruining it. All right, so let's move the camera down, and you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to uncover the box. And here's my little cat. You can see he's no worse for the wear. And if something should be wrong with him after you uncover it, like this foot looks like it's a little messed up, I can remove that. I can take my scoring tool, re-score it, and put it back on. So if something like that should happen to your piece, maybe something didn't stick right the first time, maybe an ear fell off or whatever, you can put it back on when it's leather hard. After it's dried completely, very hard to work on it. So I'm going to look at this, and I've got two options for cutting off lids. I can cut at an angle all the way around, but because there is a nose on this one, I'm going to do the same kind of lid today that I did on this one, and actually they're not much different. The lid on this is a notched lid. So that's what I'm going to do on this. The reason I make a notch is so that the lid won't just go flying off into the atmosphere when you pick it up. So before I cut it, I'm going to draw a line. I can use my toothpick or my pencil, and I'm going to draw where I'm going to cut it. When I make my notches, I want my notches not to be on the same opposite sides. So if I'm doing a notch, I might want to draw one, and I'm starting to draw right here. I want to draw one on this side. And notice I'm coming down. You can still vaguely see that line where I joined the lid to the body of the box. I'm coming below that to cut. And so, oh, I messed that foot up again. And I'm going to come around this way, and I'm going to make my second notch on this side. So I'm drawing it in. Remember, we draw it first. That way, if you make a mistake, you can always correct it. And I'm going right underneath the nose and above the tongue. And coming around to the other side, and there we go. So now I have a line to follow. And then the tool I'm going to use is my little tool that has the little knife on it. It makes a nice clean cut. I could use a pin tool if I don't have one of these. I could also use a toothpick, but it will be difficult with a toothpick. It might break. So I'm going to insert it and just follow my line all the way right under that nose. Come around to the side and cut my notch. And around to the back, cut my notch. Come around, and there we have it. Now, You can see that there are little pieces of clay that I'm going to need to smooth. So I'm just going to use my finger. When it's leather hard, I usually don't need to add water, but whenever you cut an edge, remember, it's going to be sharp. And if it looks sharp when it's wet like this, when the clay dries and after you fire it, it is sharp, very sharp. Glaze does not like to cling to sharp edges. It pulls away from a sharp edge. So you don't want any sharp edges. So I've smoothed that. Very gently put it down so that I don't ruin it. And do the same thing for this. So I'm just smoothing that edge with my finger. Smoothing the edge. And that looks pretty nice to me. Nice and smooth. No little clay hangers on. And there's just one area here I might want to clean up a little bit. Just that. There we go. All right, now I'm going to put the lid back on. Make sure it still fits, because sometimes when you're doing this, you might squeeze it a little bit too hard and it might not, it might get out of shape. But remember, because it's leather hard, it's very forgiving, and I can push things back if they need to be pushed. So here's my lid, nicely cut all the way around. And I'm only missing one thing right now, and that is my signature. So I'm going to put that on the bottom using my pencil. And I'm not pressing very hard. Remember, use a dull pencil, because you get those little hangers on there, those little clay pieces. So I can just easily get rid of those. All right. Some of you might want to put the date on your piece also. That's also a nice thing to do. I forget to put the date on a lot of my stuff. I've been doing it forever, so really doesn't matter. Anyway, don't forget, if you want to have me fire your work, you need to contact me at kcherryartist, KCHERRYARTIST @gmail.com. And we can set up an arrangement for me to come and get your piece, or you can deliver it to my home and I will fire it for you. And have a wonderful day. As always, it's been nice seeing you. Take care. Bye.